Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the movie Clerks 3. This was on-demanded through cable and whatnot, and I'm glad I was able to. I enjoyed this one. I think it's a worthy kind of one into the whole Clerks movie kind of franchise. Though it does kind of get a little bit more meta than I think it needs to, mainly because of how Kevin Smith had a heart attack, and that really informs this movie. And pretty much is like about the making of the first Clerks. So we pretty much check back in with Dante and Randall, them owning the Quick Stop and the video store now becoming a legal marijuana dispensary, even though it's kind of weird because we see Jay and Silent Bob still doing their same kind of old tactics when it wasn't legal, which kind of leads to some consternation among the customers. But we see them doing hockey on the roof and everything. The intro to the movie takes a little bit to kind of get into. It's kind of a little bit just like, okay, it's a little overly long. Can we kind of get through it before we see them pretty much like doing everything that they're kind of doing normally? Elias pretty much coming in and doing his stuff with Christianity and selling kites and NFTs, and I'm like, oh god, the NFT things, I'm like, oh, okay. They mainly use it as a plot device at the end to pretty much save everything, but I'm like, don't give NFTs anything. It just, that was an annoying aspect of this. But they're also selling kites, and they're pretty much just generally kind of like annoying Randall. And then he's like, you know what? God smite his ass. And then we see that Randall has a heart attack. And he's like, they take him to the hospital and everything. And he's like, what the fuck's kind of going on? And he has the issue that he's like, I have a small dick. And leading to that, I'm like, what the fuck? As he then also describing the Mandalorian to his doctor that's operating on him to like save him from this heart attack. It's like, oh, okay. And the doctor's pretty much telling him to have a support system with Dante, and that Dante should probably look out for what's going on with him. We learned that also Dante, who was it, Becky? Yeah, that he had gotten together with Becky, and that she was pregnant, but that she was killed by a drunk driver, and that's pretty much his whole kind of thing that he's dealing with throughout this whole movie. That lines up with Randall, who's like, you know what? I haven't done shit with my life, so I'm going to make a movie pretty much about this. And then they kind of go in. They at first are, we see, of course, the various kind of cameos as they're pretty much casting their movie. Ben Affleck and all that shit coming kind of up before Randall's like, fuck this shit. We're going to play the characters. We're going to do this shit ourselves. We get a whole scene of Elias pretty much renouncing Christianity and instead turning into a Satanist, which, except for pretty much the wardrobe change, really doesn't affect much. He just goes around with this, what the fuck is his name? Blockchain. But it's kind of funny seeing them kind of go through, trying to work out everything. It's like, we've seen all different kinds of weird-ass shit. Seeing them film the different kind of ways. Your main enjoyment out of this would be from watching the first one. So if you haven't seen the first one, I mean, granted, it's the third movie in a series, so you would assume that somebody... that you would want to go and watch the other kind of movies. But if you just watch this movie because, oh, it's out and you were just kind of interested to see what the fuck's kind of going on with it, you wouldn't get as much enjoyment because you're like, oh, okay, we deal with Veronica, we deal with Dante being, dealing with other kind of characters kind of popping up and in, Jay doing all of his kind of different kind of stuff, Bob just going ham on his ass, being like, you are a motherfucking idiot. What are you doing? Dante securing more funding of $30,000, putting up his own part in the Quick Stop, but they're going through everything, and Randall wants to film the donkey show at the movies, which they pretty much, Jay and Silent Bob go and like get the people high there to kind of do the thing, but of course that reminds him of Becky, and Becky's ghost is pretty much going through them, trying to get him to move on, but he really can't, and instead kind of runs away and gets drunk before we get the kind of confrontation of Randall just being more of a dick to Dante, and him just finally calling him out and being like, "You're selfish. You've relegated me to a side character. My life is your life, and some of us just die." Like, after Becky and his unborn child were killed, he's thought about killing himself, and it really was like, holy fucking shit, before he then has a heart attack. And it's interesting to have that kind of thing going on where one of them lives and one of them dies to the heart attack. And we see that they take Dante, and Dante was there for Randall throughout his stay there. Randall decides to pretty much go back and finish his movie, and Eliza's like, "You're a fucking asshole. Fuck you." But then Randall goes through, changes up everything, and pretty much makes Dante pretty much the main character and whatnot, and then shows it to him before Dante passes away and goes off into the afterlife with Becky. And it's like, oh shit. Then of course, Emma? The one that he put up the money for has pretty much come to take that and take the ownership, but of course, due to great kind of plotting, Elias and Blockchain's NFT sold, and they got like $1 million, so they pay her ass off, and Elias now becomes the next Dante to Randall, and Kevin Smith then narrates at the end that Randall kept making movies at the end when he was to 90, and that talking about how he'd hate the job for the fucking customers, but he loved the job for the fucking customers for what's kind of going on for like the retail and the movie going experience. So, I mean, there's not much to really dive into here. It's mainly almost like a fictionalized behind the scenes of what was kind of going on with the first Clerks movie. And it's mainly understanding the first Clerks movie and then the kind of weird kind of experiences of making a film. And it's like the fictionalized account of that, and that's pretty much it. It's still enjoyable, but you don't really get much beyond that. I mean, it's like about 100 minutes. And you would mainly only get it and understand it if you'd seen the first two movies, but more so seen the first movie to understand what's kind of going on here. If you don't even really see the second movie, I mean, granted, that would be odd, you still get enough in this movie to understand the basic kind of stuff of he fell in love with this woman, they pretty much were together, and then she died, drunk driver. And then a donkey show was involved. You don't get any kind of really weird thing that happened, like Jay doing the kind of Buffalo Bill dance in the second one. So don't really need that. Not really any kind of standout kind of funny ones. It's more meta and more kind of serious of understanding life to a degree and ruminating on Kevin Smith's whole kind of heart attack and what that kind of means to him as a filmmaker and what he means to him in this kind of world. So in that essence, I think it works out pretty well for that kind of objective, but it comes kind of at the expense of the overall kind of plot pacing of what we're attempting to do with these characters, because that real life experience has completely overshadowed and changed what this movie can be and is about. So I know that's a weird thing to kind of bring up, because I mean, the most kind of things that we were getting out of the other ones are this is retail or this is fast food, and the weird kind of shenanigans and shit that ensues here. This completely kind of changes that to the fact where that's completely almost dropped, and we're now doing the whole filmmaking process, which kind of changes what we do and what kind of happens in the movie. We don't really focus on the customers. We're more focused on the interpersonal dramas of what's kind of going on and the characters, which works, but we don't get any kind of weird situations of the whole 37 dicks. I'm not granted that's character driven as well, but what's kind of going on with that? There's whole shoe polish. I'm not even supposed to be here today. The whole Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars shtick of the second one, and that's another thing we don't get as, I mean, we get some kind of pop culture references and everything, but those take more of a backseat to showcasing the filmmaking process and everything. Again, shifting of objectives and what's going on in the world. I almost wish that Kevin Smith had just done a movie kind of exploring what the heart attack did for him with different kind of characters. I understand how much this world means to him and everything, but I think it was more of a detriment to these characters because we get some weird kind of shit going on. We get Elias turning into a Satanist and not really getting much more of a payoff other than him being used as a plot device to save Randall's store with fucking NFTs. Oh my god. And kites. I still found it kind of enjoyable, but I wouldn't really tell somebody you really need to go and kind of see this. I think it's interesting to kind of explore the filmmaking process, especially with it being more kind of like the fictionalized account of kind of like the first one. Interesting in that kind of realm, understanding Kevin Smith's kind of thought processes on what was kind of going on at that time, potentially, and what's kind of happening. So, I really wouldn't say this is one of my favorite Kevin Smith movies, but it's definitely an interesting one of understanding his thought processes of what's kind of happened to him and him kind of working through that with these characters. I don't think that these characters fit that as well, but I've seen worse kind of attempts to kind of shove in something like that onto other kind of worlds or whatnot, because sometimes that shit doesn't really work that well. Here, it works enough that it doesn't completely destroy the movie, or the franchise for that matter, but it just, there were funnier kind of dialogue and interactions and everything kind of going on. There's jokes that go on, but it definitely is treated more seriously, which I usually tend to be more on that kind of side, but I wouldn't say that this is laugh out loud. Like, there's not ones that are like fucking rolling like the show What We Do in the Shadows with the trial. Like that, I was just fucking losing my shit on like the comedy that they were able to accomplish on that. Here you're like, okay, funny kind of situations, dealing with what's kind of going on with trying to make a movie, what being a producer means, what's kind of going on here, there, and all the kind of logistics of doing everything like that. But I had an enjoyable time with it. I wouldn't say go out and watch it right off the bat. I wouldn't say that you need to avoid it or anything. I would recommend if you go to watch it to sit down and take the time for it. I wouldn't recommend this as a noise in the background one unless you've seen it a couple times and you're like, okay, I got noise in the background, and then you can pop your head in when you see a good kind of part that you're all right with and you're like, all right. Those kind of movies. I really like those kind of movies because you get sucked in, you get a kind of thing, and you're like, all right, okay, cool. This one, you don't really have that kind of, at least for me, just really doesn't have the kind of like, it'll completely suck you in, but you'll at least get a kind of part where you're like, okay, cool, and you get a little smile or a little chuckle or whatnot. And if you like it a lot better than I do, good on you. Never want to take that away from me. If you hate it more than I do, I can understand that. I just thought this was okay, and I liked checking back in with these characters and kind of understanding what Kevin Smith's objective was with this one. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.